doing grammarian as well for the word of the day.
I don't have a word today, but I'll be a grammarian.
Okay.
Maybe not a good grammarian.
No, it's fun. It's text practice.
One more thing for, I guess it's for business. Has anyone seen the area advertisement on social media? Okay, that's fine.
I saw the picture of me, so I tagged in it. And then there was another one, like a video. Is that the one that you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's for the area. That's on the area page.
And what's the name of the page?
Mobile Area Toastmasters District 77 Area 42. That's on Facebook, but then it's on the Hilltoppers channel. It's on the Hilltoppers channel on YouTube, on Twitter, and on LinkedIn.
I know the LinkedIn, I think.
Yeah, yes.
I think LinkedIn, since we started posting on there, that's been kind of been good. I've been seeing some responses to that.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on to the educational portion of our meeting. Tonight, our Toastmaster is going to be myself, Cody Broussard, and I'm going to go over the roles for tonight. So we have a timer, and that's going to be Don. Don, can you tell us what the timer does?
Yes, I'm going to be running the timer for everything from prepared speeches to table topics and evaluations. Prepared speeches are for 5 to 7 minutes. Table topics are anywhere from 1 to 2 minutes in goal length. And evaluations between 2 and 3 minutes. As you hit the minimum qualified time, the light will be turned to green. And as you're a minute away, it'll be yellow. And then, of course, when you reach your maximum time, it'll be red. And I'll be keeping track of everyone's times, and I'll give you a review towards the end.
Thank you, Don. We also have a grammarian and odd counter. That's going to be Jeremy.
In the role of odd counter, my duty is to look for crutch words such as so, and whatever use creative calls. I'll also be counting those and tallying them up and giving you a total at the end. Grammarian, new role for myself. It is looking for grammatical mistakes, making note, giving a review of each speech or each speaker.
Thank you, Jeremy. And our evaluator, do you want to do general as well, Maurice?
Yeah, I can do general. Yes.
Our evaluator for tonight is going to be Maurice. Can you explain what the evaluator's role is?
The general evaluator will go over the summary of how the meeting went, and also the general evaluator will introduce the speech evaluators, the timer for the timer's report, the grammarian, and all counter for those reports.
Okay, thank you, Maurice. And the table topic master is going to be myself tonight as well. And my role as table topic master is to come up with impromptu speech ideas for Toastmasters and guests participating. So if you want to join, just raise your hand and I'll call on you. And it's a lot of fun. And I encourage guests to give it a try. But you're not obligated to if you don't want to. Okay, so we're going to move on with our first speech. Our first speaker tonight is going to be Susan, and she's going to use her educational overview as a speech. Welcome, Susan.
Sorry, I didn't have it.
Oh, no problem. I'll just do the best I can to evaluate.
Good evening, everybody. Good to see you. Good to be back after a long absence. So tonight I've been asked to give the educational overview, and you can tell I'm kind of struggling with my voice, so I'm hoping that I'll last through this whole thing. Tonight's speech is on how to give more memorable speeches. Well, I don't know if I'm putting myself out on the line here because I'm going to ask the question, if anybody remembers from another educational overview, what I said was one of the most effective methods of engaging an audience. Do you remember?
Question.
Yes, that was a good one. But actually, I'm thinking more in terms of storytelling. Because that's very effective. When people tell stories, they're remembered better than if you're just giving them a lot of facts and figures and all that. But, as it turns out, even though it said that, getting people to remember what you say takes more than just having a good story. So I did this research in the Toastmasters magazine, and I can't remember which edition it was, but there was a Dr. Carmen Simon that wrote an article in Toastmasters magazine. She owns a company called Memsey out of California, and they use neuroscience and cognitive psychology to help organizations create more memorable messages. And one of Simon's most well-known studies that she did involved 1,500 research subjects, and they were asked to look at a 20-slide presentation. And this 20-slide presentation had one core message to it. But when she asked the people 2 days later on the follow-up what they got from it, they only remembered about, on the average, 4 different slides out of 20. So Simon says, speakers can use certain techniques to improve the chances of audiences remembering and then acting on the key messages of their speech. So I'm going to go through some of those. The first one is give audience something that they anticipate and then surprise them. You want to break the pattern in the audience members' brains. After you've sort of gone on for a little bit, you want to change things up, and after they've started disengaging from your presentation. You know how we all sort of just kind of zone out. Well, if you just pull them back in by doing something surprising, then that'll help them get back into what you're saying. You might, if you're using a slide presentation, you might alternate between slides that are very visually intense and then very simple. Or if you're just speaking, something that's very serious, and then just add in something lighthearted or a story or whatever. Just break the predictability. And then the second thing is have a good mixture of facts, actions, and emotions in your presentation. Even if the topic that you're discussing is too dry to engage the audience with emotion, you know, if you're listening to something on physics, that's, you know, not very emotional. But you, as a speaker, if you're talking about something like that, can make up for that. You can become the source of emotion. So if you're excited or passionate about whatever you're speaking about, your audience is going to catch that excitement from you, and they're going to be more intent on listening. Dr. Simon gave an example of this, 2 engineers that she was listening to give a talk on predictive analytics software. And she said, you know, that was not something she was particularly interested in. I'm not sure why she was even at that talk, but anyway, she said that the guys giving the talk were so emotive. I mean, they were so passionate about that she found herself drawn in and actually catching a lot of what they were saying. So, and then the third thing, don't shy away from repetition. You know, just remember that you've become the subject matter expert on the topic of your speech. Some people that you're giving the speech to may have never even heard what you're talking about. So you think about in advertising, if anybody knows this factoid, in advertising it takes 7 touches for the average person to attend to an advertising message or to understand it or to even hear it. So don't be afraid of repeating yourself. One UCLA study found that hit songs repeat lyrics up to 20% more than lower ranking songs on the charts. Something I had not heard. So I'm going to sort of just kind of wrap this up by talking about 3 techniques to enhance memory. And basically it is just a synopsis of what I've told you already. So number 1, use attention triggers. When your talk becomes too predictable, break the pattern by dropping in a quote or a photo or something, a story to break the audience's, you know, stone-faced stare or whatever. If you're not using slides, consider dropping that story into the information or insert a joke or something that breaks that predictability. And then the second thing, use memory magnets. So visual elements like text or graphics are very important. Emotions, as I mentioned earlier, are more likely to drive action. So it helps them to remember and to do what you ask them to do. And that's especially important if you're giving some sort of a sales talk, that you want to close a deal or something. So you need to make sure that they remember what you're saying so that they'll act on what they've heard. And then the third thing is use decision drivers. Paying attention is one thing, but acting on information that I've just talked about is another. So you want to master the skill of appealing to audience drivers that make them act, and here are some of them. What drives our audience members? Achievement, efficiency, freedom from worry, being affiliated with other people, or they're just endless needs. We're humans, we all have these emotions and these needs. So do your research beforehand about your audience. Who are they and what drives them? So understanding why and how our brains retain content is a key to making our own speeches more memorable. It makes our message memorable and leads audience members to do what we've been asking them to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Put some good tips in there that I haven't heard. And I think you might be able to pass that on as a research speech because you have some research in there.
Okay.
So you can take a look at that
All
one.
right.
I think everybody has to do that one through the pathway. All right, we only have one speech tonight, so now we're going to move on to table topics. I have a list of 365 table topics. So I want someone to pick a number and also need a volunteer.
I'll pick number 18.
18? Okay.
I'm not wrong. Read it to me first.
Any volunteers for the first one?
Blind volunteer.
All right, Sean. So Olivia has your destiny right here. 18. Is it possible to lie without saying a word?
Is it impossible to lie without saying a word? No, it's not. Because in order to lie, you have to make a statement about somebody asks me something. I'm supposed to say yes, no, and so being quiet and not saying anything would, in a true sense of what I define as a lie, you would not be doing, you're not telling the truth, but you're not lying. That's my answer.
Okay. Next volunteer.
I'll volunteer.
All right, Jeremy. So pick a number, 1 through 65.
1.
1.
First time volunteer. So.
All right. When was the last time you tried something new?
So the question is, when was the last time you tried something new? And that would be right now, because I've never volunteered for table topics. Also, this will be the first time that I got up and spoke at this podium, period. And in a larger sense, this is the first time I ever joined Toastmasters and the first time I've ever joined a group to learn how to speak, and something that I've looked into for years and just the first time I've been able to, take the leap and join. So lots of other first times, but I think that this would be the best example and really fitting of this situation. So, and that's just a good example.
Thanks, Jeremy, great job. I know it's tough getting up here for the first time. You did great, so thank you for that. All right, who wants to go next? All right, Cheyenne.
222.
222. All right, 222. When you look back over the past month, what single moment stands out?
I'll skip that one because March was a blur, honestly.
Okay.
Like the lack of sleep and so much food.
All right, you want to go to 220?
I'll do that one.
Okay.
I've been asked over the last month what single moment stands out, so I'm going to tell you a funny story. Now, I'm not telling the story to toot my own horn, but it is something very interesting that happened to me. So I have recently started getting involved in the film industry. It's moving into Mobile and Baldwin County, believe it or not. So I had the opportunity to be an extra in a movie that I would not recommend friends or family to see, but it was still cool to be a part of one of the scenes. So the most memorable moment of the lack of sleep that happened over 4 days and in a row, and then some other time. But anyways, I was asked to, as an extra, stand on a sofa. We were copying a party scene, and I'm standing there being silly. And I don't know if you guys know who Damon Wayans Jr. is, but he is my favorite character in the show New Girl. And I'm standing on the sofa acting silly, and the directors are saying, "Everyone please be quiet," and I'm not listening. But they said that because he had walked in the room. So I'm the only one acting goofy, and I turn around, standing on the sofa, and he is there in the doorway, and I was like, and yeah, so that was the most, and he was kind of like dead staring me like Sean is right now, just like that. You were there, you know. And so I was just immediately embarrassed, but I thought it was more for the story. So that is the most memorable thing from March.
Yeah, what's the perfect way? Tell us that awesome story. Who wants to go next?
I've just had those songs like, "Ooh, just tell me serious." Wasn't extras.
All right, Maurice.
139.
I feel like you already know what this is.
No.
Yes, I remember.
139. What stands between you and happiness?
Mr. Topic Master, fellow Toastmasters, honored guest, what stands between me and happiness? One thing that stands between me and happiness, and it's not the only thing, is success. Going through a bunch of failures, there's a silver lining at the end, but during that moment, there's no happiness. Another thing that stands between me and happiness is good friendship and good fellowship, good camaraderie. Do we have a word of the day?
No, we don't.
Oh,
We can say it's camaraderie.
But those are a few things that stand between me and happiness, Mr. Topic Master.
We still have like 10 minutes to kill, so.
I'll take number.
11. Do you think crime is a sign of weakness or strength?
Evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Do I time is a sign of weakness or strength?
I'm sorry, is it crying or crying?
Crying.
Okay.
Crying.
Crying.
Okay.
You said crying.
Okay.
Sorry. That's a little bit better.
Sorry.
Okay. Do I think crying is a sign of weakness?
Oh God, I hurt you.
Well, I don't think it's a sign of weakness, for sure. And I think a lot of times it can be involuntary, depending on the situation or the reaction that you might be having. Sometimes it could relate to the situation that you're in, whether it's in public or private. But no matter what happens, I don't think it would be a sign of weakness. Is it a sign of strength? I don't know if it's a sign of strength, but it's certainly a sign of just being comfortable with yourself and your surroundings and how you portray your reactions. So I think it's probably just a natural reaction that just happens, and I guess some people probably try to control it, either let it happen or not to let it happen. So I think it's probably more situational than anything else, but definitely not a sign of weakness. That's it.
Thank you, Don. Yeah, sorry about that. Crime would have been hard to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. And if, Olivia,
Were you gonna say something?
I was saying, also if you've gone once, you can go again, so, but
Oh.
Olivia,
I'm gonna try number 42.
42, okay, 42.
Please don't be there.
What is the most desirable trait another person can possess?
The most desirable trait that someone can possess to me is to be able to show emotion. So whether that be crying, happy, love, just being able to show emotions, because I think so often we hide our true selves, sometimes out of shame or fear or just the thought of being misinterpreted. So I think that's a awesome qualification for someone to have, is just to be able to show emotion, especially if that emotion is love.
Thank you, Olivia. So we have time for a few more. John, you want to?
32.
What do we all have in common besides our genes that make us human?
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and our guests. I've been asked what things we have in common.
Besides genes
Besides genes
that make us human.
that make us human.
G-E-N-E.
I'm wearing jeans. I think a lot of what makes us in common with one another is just life experiences that we've had. Although we all may have different experiences, independently we can find common threads that intertwine us all. We've all experienced joy, sorrow, laughter, love, hopefully. Things like that that kind of draw us all together, right? That's about all I can think of.
I'll go to the next ones too.
What number?
160.
Who do you dream about?
Who's that?
David Wayans Jr.
You guys are about to judge me so hard. Okay. Oh gosh. So I've been asked, who do I dream about? This is actually an inside joke in my household because first, let me give you some context. My husband is the sweetest person in the whole world. If they meet the two of us, you'll probably like him better because he's way sweet, really nice, more quiet than I am, and I'm like, ugh. But I have dreams about him where he is like polar opposite, and we call it Dream Kyler. His name's Kyler. So he's just like horrible in the dreams, and I'll wake up mad at him, and I'm like, he's like, oh, Dream Kyler again. So it's like an inside joke. But usually I have dreams, I guess, alternate universe husband, how he would be if he wasn't as nice as he is now. Another thing I dream about that I feel like I should share, I was really stressed out in high school and part of college, and I would always have zombie apocalypse dreams. One of my roommates would watch Walking Dead, and I could not study in my room, so I'd have to study in the living room. So I would be watching that in the background, and then I would always have those zombie dreams. So I would take the husband dreams over the zombie dreams. So thank you. That's it.
One more. All right, Sean.
I'll have to pick a number. 77.
Good choice.
Lucky seven.
77.
So let's start. So that's good. Where would you most like to go and why?
Toastmaster, honored guest. Where would you like to go and why? I want to go wherever my family, we can be together and just have all the distractions and all the stuff we have to do and school and work and everything, and just be able to spend time together and let loose, goof off. And that would be where anywhere we can do that is where I'm happiest. So, Mr. Toastmaster, that's my answer.
What am I supposed to say? Well, I am the Toastmaster and the Tabletop Master.
Tabletop.
So you were right. Okay, so thank you everyone for participating tonight. It was really good. Table topics. It was a little longer tonight because we only had one speech. So I appreciate it. Now we're going to move on to the evaluation portion of the meeting. Let's welcome our general evaluator / evaluator, Bruce.
All right. Thank you. Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, I will go over the general evaluation of the meeting first. The meeting started on time. We went over a little business concerning the annual conference, including the gift basket or the whatever you call it. And we have to put we have a chance to put in advertisement spots for a business, and there's a few other things that we can do in anticipation of the conference. So that's the main part of the business. We had one speech tonight, which was originally an educational overview, but Susan did a good job, and I'll get into that in a few minutes. So that is the general evaluation for me. The meeting basically went smooth. We went into table topics. We had a lot of volunteers for table topics. Before I go into the evaluation of Susan's educational overview / speech, I will get the timer's report.
Okay, so after keeping track of the time, we started off with Susan's educational overview, which I timed at 7 minutes and 5 seconds. The table topics, Susan was at 1 minute and 5 seconds. Jeremy was at 58 seconds. Cheyenne's first one was 1 minute and 30 seconds. Maurice was 52 seconds. I was 1 minute 3 seconds. Thank you for timing that. And Olivia was 37 seconds. John was at 32 seconds. Cheyenne's second one was 1 minute and 18 seconds, and Sean's last one was 1 minute and 10 seconds.
Thank you. Okay. Well, before I go to the all counter and the grammarians report, I better just go ahead and do Susan's evaluation. Should have done that first, so you get a chance to time me and get a chance to check my grammar and my pauses, my vocalized pauses. For Susan's speech, she went over, I assume, an excerpt from the Toastmasters magazine. Is that on how to improve your speaking? Is that?
How to give a memorable speech.
Or how to give a memorable speech. Thank you. And there are several pieces to the puzzle to give a memorable speech. And the first thing that is needed in a memorable speech, besides the speech, the audience has to have a memory. So that's, all joking aside, there are different elements to enhance your memory, to enhance memory from the speaker to the audience. One method is to use attention triggers. So whatever helps to trigger your audience's attention during your speech is a good way to enhance memory. Another method is using memory magnets. And that's another tool to help the audience to remember the speech that you make. And another element is use decision drivers. It's an appeal to make the audience act. So those are some tools to help the audience remember the speech, a memorable speech that you have to give. And another element that you have to do is to do research on your audience, such as age, their interests, etc. Other tools includes evoking emotion from the audience, evoking excitement from the audience. And these are a lot of the elements that Dr. Simon has in this, in how to make a speech memorable. So that includes the evaluation of Susan's speech, and I'll go to the timer one more time because I did not evaluate before I did the timer's report.
And I was kind of thrown off a little bit there, but I think we're going to go ahead and call you at about 2 minutes and 33 seconds for your
Right, thank you.
evaluation, so you're right now.
Now for the grammarian's report and all counters report.
Okay, for the grammatical, or the grammarian, I didn't really find anything very obvious, so didn't write anything down for that. For I have, there's 3 for me that I counted and noticed. Susan had 3 R-ums, I lumped those together, and a couple of you-knows. Maurice had 1 R-um. Cheyenne had a so. Sean had a so. Don had 1 R-um and 1 you-know. So I was captivated by Cheyenne's first speech, so she may have said it right. That's it.
All right, thank you. Okay, did the times report, did the grammarian all counter, I did the general evaluation and evaluation of Susan's speech. That concludes the general evaluation, Mr. Toastmaster.
Normally we go to the educational overview, but we already have that with Susan's speech, so we'll move on. We do not have any awards tonight, and we can now move into the roles for next meeting. So does anyone anything they would like to participate with next week, speech, or Maurice, you said you're working on one?
Yeah, I'm working it. Yeah, I'm not this time. I'm not going to request it until I have it.
I'll do my icebreaker.
You do your icebreaker? Okay. Are you in the tool yet, ESP?
I am in pathways.
Your pathways, okay.
Yeah, so I still need to like get into the local.
The easy speak one, okay.
Don, I
I
can get with him
think, I
at
think
work.
Justin
He may be able to help me.
may have provided, I was trying to remember how I actually got into it as well. I think you may have sent me something like a link and I went in and changed my password after that.
Okay.
I wanna do-
So.
I'll look back through my email to make sure I can get
Okay,
anything.
I'll take your email after the meeting, make sure, I'll send you another update. Cause I can edit it and then it'll send you another, like, login.
Okay, sounds good.
I've never done the grammarian word of the day, I'll do that.
Okay,
And I wanna do the table topics master.
okay. Alright. Anybody else? Okay, and then, as always, it speaks open, so if you think of something later in the week, feel free to go in there and sign up for any role you'd like. Also, you can sign up for future roles. And Kelly, if you're interested in volunteering, just, you have my email, right?
I think so.
Okay, just send me an email, I'll put you in contact with Peggy from Gulf Breeze, and she should be able to provide you with more information.
KODY, correct?
Yeah, KOD, and my email's KZB801 at Gmail.
Kilo Zulu Bravo 801 at Gmail.
Yep.
I'm gonna hold off committing until I know, make sure all.
That's the pressure, Sean.
Huh?
Put that pressure on yourself. That's about the only time I get a
might be
speech.
playing Monday night, so.
It's usually when I get a speech done, so I volunteer for it and haven't written it yet. Okay.
And
I hope that
Andrea, Andrea works with us,
Okay.
and Jeremy downtown at the core.
Hi,
I
Andrew.
don't know if Andrea's ready with me or not.
We met last week.
I'll be signing her.
She's a lot more fun than me and Jeremy.
All right, well, if no one has anything else, we'll adjourn the meeting for tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Andrea?
Yes.
You sign in? Well, you did.
I was here last week.
Yeah.
Finally signed
Yes.
into